My son was dating Sabrina. They started in high school and broke up when they were in college. It was a long relationship, and I became really close to her. She is, in my eyes, our daughter. Her family are awful people, and she sees us as her parental figures. She even plans to have my husband walk her down the aisle when she gets married. Now, when they broke up, their relationship just died. We didn't drop her since she's our kid at this point. My son wasn't happy but moved on, so she got invited to family events for years. My son, now 27, is married to Bethany, and she's a nice person. We never clicked, we don't have much in common, and they live 2 hours away, so it's hard to plan stuff to get to know her more. It'll grow in time. Now, we had a picnic, and all the family members were invited, so Sabrina was there as normal, and I thought the night was nice. Bethany came up to me at the end of the night and expressed that she's uncomfortable with her husband's ex being everywhere and asked if I wouldn't invite her for family stuff. I told her no, and that Sabrina's part of the family and has been part of the family longer than she has. If there's a valid reason, like her being rude, then I would consider it, but she's done nothing. She left, and my son has called me an idiot for picking her over my now real family. Am I the idiot? My husband thinks she's crazy, but I know we can be biased. OP, maybe have your husband invite some of his exes to family events also. You shouldn't mind, right? Huge, you are the idiot. She's not your daughter. She's your son's ex. And it's weird to keep inviting her to family events when your son has moved on and married. It was extra rude to be so dismissive and nasty to Bethany when she was just trying to open up about how uncomfortable she is. If you want to be friends with his ex, then do it when they're not around. Oh, come on. The ex has been in the family fold for years at this point. OP's husband will walk her down the aisle. OP thinks of Sabrina as her own child. She's done nothing wrong and shouldn't be disinvited from her family. Blood doesn't always make family. Bethany's being insecure, which happens, but OP's right that not inviting Sabrina to family events she's gone to for ages would say, I don't think you're my family anymore. OP, you can't win this one. This is the problem. When people want you to love their spouse and partner like you do, they stop, and then you're supposed to stop too. When they did nothing wrong. You can't have it both ways. You can't have the benefits of a loving, warm, welcoming family who makes your partner feel like one of them, and have the kind of family who cuts people off on a dime because of boundaries arbitrarily set when they want to bang someone else. Everyone's the idiot here. My family's in a similar situation, but in our case, I'm Bethany. I have never and will never ask my mother-in-law to stop seeing our version of Sabrina. I understand that they have a bond, and it means a lot to them to see each other on holidays, but we deliberately don't see mother-in-law very often anymore. Whenever we're around, at group events or just us visits, my mother-in-law brings up how amazing his ex is. She tells anyone who will listen that she wishes her son and her ex had worked things out because she doesn't like me as much. Bethany will never forget your blatant favoritism. Your son will never forget it either. I'm not saying that Sabrina needs to be uninvited to events. You need to put in more effort to make Bethany feel like her emotions matter to you. Be prepared to lose your son then, and any future grandchildren that he might have. LOL, they'll have to content themselves with Sabrina's children as grandchildren. Until Sabrina's husband is weirded out that her ex's parents are around and keeps those kids away too. Let's be clear, you've chosen this girl over your son, not just his new wife. I hope Sabrina still hangs around when your son stops calling. Betcha she doesn't. Update. I will clarify that she may not be my kid by blood, but everything else. She's my daughter and has been for about 10 years. Also, Sabrina's engaged, so now she doesn't want to get back with my son, and I don't want them to either. Yes, I have invited Bethany to do stuff with me. It's always been a no. I won't disown Sabrina by disinviting her to family events, because that's actually what I would be saying. I'd be saying that I don't see her as part of the family if I disinvite her to family events that she's gone to for about 10 years. This is asking me to choose between two children, and I will not disown one. I, 30 female, am a preschool teacher. I love my students and truly enjoy what I do. However, I also have CPTSD and get overstimulated. I'm in therapy for both mental and sensory. While I'm fine in the classroom, I really depend on my lunch hour paired with nap time to decompress. I don't drive, so I can't go anywhere on my break, and there's nowhere around that I can go to chill. I sit in the lounge with noise-canceling earbuds. Most colleagues see that and take it as a sign. Unless there's a fire or someone's dying, leave me alone. I can't go to my classroom as my kids are still there. It's 90+ degrees outside. There are no other rooms that don't have kids. This is the only place I can go. However, there's one colleague, Sandra, 50s, who just cannot take the hint. She'll tap me on the shoulder to talk about little things or gossip, and sometimes shows me pictures of her family or cat. I did eventually tell her, "Hey, I appreciate needing this time to decompress, so unless it's urgent, please leave me alone." She said okay. She got a little better, but recently started up again. I tried to remind her, but she just sort of brushed me off. Yesterday was especially rough. I had 2 new students, and they were really struggling with the transition. I really needed my break. I sat in the lounge, put my earbuds in, and played my favorite music. I also began scrolling through social media. Tap, tap, tap. I look up, and Sandra's asking me about my day, which is clearly just a way for her to talk about herself. I politely smile and say I'm not available to talk right now. I go back to my own thing. 5 minutes later, tap, tap, tap. I ripped out my butt and asked, "What?" She said, "I want to show you pictures of my granddaughter." I said, "I don't care about your family. Please just leave me alone." She got very upset. A few people in the lounge gave me a dirty look. I'm sure some will ask, I don't know if she has autism or is neurodivergent in another form. At this point, I'm unsure why it matters, as I'm also neurodivergent. So I guess it's a debate about whose needs come first, hers to talk nonstop, or mine for needing some time to decompress. That's even if she's neurodivergent, which again, I have no way of knowing, and it isn't my business. Some feel I'm wrong for how I handled it. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You're within your rights to say no to people trying to interact with you. You then told her no in a polite manner. However, a polite no was not clear enough for her, and she proceeded to try harder. Thus, you needed to resort to a less polite, but more clear no. You would be an idiot if you didn't tell her no politely before, but you did. Exactly this. I'm like OP, neurodivergent, and I need my break time to decompress. I also get super overstimulated. I'm a nurse and I love my job. However, it is very people-y and noisy and full of interesting sights and smells. I rely on my break to reset my brain. I literally seek out dark, empty spaces to take my break in. Also, being neurodivergent isn't a free pass to bother someone who's explicitly asked to be left alone. You're not expecting her to pick up on subtle social cues. You told her, and she's choosing to bother you anyway. Yep, she had it coming. Your needs come first, and she absolutely doesn't need to show you pictures of her grandkids. Also, if there are other people in the lounge, why isn't she bugging them? Just try to keep your cool. I, male 47, have a son, Jake, 26, who has his own son, Mike, kindergartner. Jake's mother and I only had a short-term relationship, and it was an accidental pregnancy. To be blunt, I never wanted to be a parent, particularly not at 21. However, Jake's mother did, and it wasn't my decision. Although we've always kept the peace, things have always been icy between us due to that. However, I always tried to do right by Jake. I'd have him every other weekend and for a month during the summer. I'd do my best to deliver on anything he asked of me, treat him kindly, and try to be a good father. Then, at a certain point, His mother married a guy Jake hated, and I had him move in with me once he was a young teen. I won't lie, I wasn't cut out to be a parent. I love Jake, but I just hate parenting. I did it anyway since he's my son. We have a very good relationship, and I've never shirked any responsibility to him. Jake also became a father at 21. However, he's all for it and is happily married to Mike's mother. I also got him into my electrician's unit and have set him up with some good jobs. So he was on much better footing than I was for a child. Back then, we had a long talk, and I told him, Jake, being a parent is a very different life. It's hard, exhausting, and on a day-to-day basis, you don't really get to do what you want very much. It'll be a long time before you no longer have that kind of responsibility. Then the conversation turned to how I'd help him. I told him no. I'm retired from parenting. I'm turning back to my own life. He has his own home and union job, is engaged, and is adult enough to decide to have a baby. He's an adult now. He's the parent. I'll be around, and if there are any emergencies, obviously I'll do what I can, but I won't be an active grandparent. I've largely held to it. I've been traveling a lot. I have a girlfriend and hobbies, and to be blunt, I'm doing all the things I didn't get to do in my 20s. Do I see Jake and his family? Yes. However, I rarely agree to babysit. Jake resents that I don't go to Mike's games. They tend to conflict with my weightlifting club, and that I'm pretty hands-off with Mike. Things came to a head last week when Mike had a baseball tournament, and I refused to go because I had plans to take a scuba class with my girlfriend, which admittedly could have been rescheduled. I didn't tell Jake this, but I spent so many Saturdays bored out of my skull watching Little League when Jake was little. I always cheered loudly, was crazy supportive, and never let on that it was like watching paint dry. But this is no longer my responsibility. So I told him, Jake, I spent 20 years parenting. That's enough. He then yelled at me that I was always jetting around, playing like a teenager, and not putting him first. I told him that no, I wasn't. I did that for 20 years to get him on his feet as an adult. I've done that and can go back to prioritizing my own life. I've spent 20 years putting Jake first and not really having much of a life. What's that BS? You are the idiot. You had him every other weekend and barely a month in the summer. For the first 13 years, you were barely present. Why would you blame someone that's not there for stealing your time by being absent from your life? He did every other weekend and 1 month in the summer for the first 13 years of his son's life. That's barely their parenting, not his duty, and certainly not even close to putting Jake first for 20 years. A parent's duty is to be present for their kid as much as possible. He was there as little as possible until Jake was 13. Then Jake turns 18, and OP stops being a parent. Parenthood doesn't stop at 18. He had 5 years of constant parenting? He then took the kid into his home full-time for his teenage years and raised him well enough to get a union job that probably has a pension. OP was apparently good enough to parent that his son is eager to have him involved in his own and his son's lives. And anyone who thinks that full-time solo parenting from age 13 on is easy has clearly never spent much time around teenagers as an adult. He set his son up very well. I think it's safe for him to choose how much energy he wants to put into his grandchild. OP is not the idiot. Being a parent never stops, my dude. You're entitled to free time, but you just can't tell him you've checked out of parenting. You are the idiot, OP. I don't mean to be harsh, man, but if my father had turned out like you, constantly reminding me of how he was done being my dad, I'd probably cut ties with you. It's just so selfish and painful for a child to hear that. I'm surprised he hasn't already. Just tell your kid you hate him and want nothing to do with him and his kid. Then you can go and be selfish and forget that you were ever a parent. I, 26 female, come from a close-knit family consisting of my parents, 2 older brothers, and my sister, 23. My brothers are financially well off and have always supported our family. However, my sister has a history of making poor financial decisions, and this has caused tension within our family. Recently, my sister approached me with a financial request. She explained that she had gotten into significant credit card debt due to overspending and needed help to pay it off. She asked if I could lend her a substantial amount of money to cover her debt, over $5,000. Now, I'm not in a position to lend her the money she requested. I work a regular 9 to 5 and have my expenses to manage. Additionally, I've been saving up for a down payment on a house, and lending her the money would significantly lower my chances of getting the home that I've been working so hard for. When I explained my situation to her, she became upset and accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. She argued that, as her sister, I should be there for her during her time of need. She also mentioned that I had helped out her brothers in the past and questioned why I couldn't do the same for her. I understand that family is important, and I genuinely want to support my sister. However, I also believe in being financially responsible and maintaining my own financial stability. Since the incident, my sister has been distant with me. She's even involved our parents, who are pressuring me to reconsider my decision. They argue that family should always help each other, regardless of the circumstances. Am I the idiot for refusing to help my sister financially? Not the idiot. The excuse, "we are family," has got to be the lamest of all. If your brothers are all well off, why isn't she asking them? Why aren't your parents helping if they believe it's so important? She won't be paying you the money back at all. Remind her and your parents that she can pay her credit cards off monthly and that this should be a lesson to her not to overspend. If your parents still try to guilt you into paying off your sister's debts, ask them, if you do, will they buy your house for you? Because, after all, the family should help the family out. You're not obliged to let your sister drag you down with her poor money management. If your parents believe you are, they can be the ones to help her restructure her debts, since they say circumstance is not important. Tell her you'll give her all the support she needs by finding and setting up an appointment with a very good financial advisor and helping her budget her money to pay off her debts instead of asking for money and learning nothing from her mistakes. I live in a city where we get several feet of snow every winter. I always clean off my sidewalk because it's the law and the right thing to do. I used to clear off the street parking in front of my house too because I didn't want to get stuck. One of my neighbors would take advantage of this and occasionally park one of his cars there until they could clean their spot, which meant I had to park down the road. I asked them not to, but they said rightly that no one owns the street parking. Last summer, I bought myself a Bronco. Last winter, I didn't clear the snow in front of my house either. I just packed it down with the Bronco. It has a couple of lumpy little icebergs in front of my house. He tried parking on it, but he got stuck on the soft snow between the icebergs and had to spend almost an hour digging himself out. He tried complaining to the city by law enforcement, but was told that the sidewalks were all I was responsible for, since I didn't own the parking spot on the street. I got to park in my spot all winter with no problems. It was kind of funny in the spring. All the other snow in the area had melted, but my icebergs made it into May. Yesterday, he talked to me after work. He asked if I was planning on cleaning the snow this coming winter. I said no, because I bought a car that didn't require me to do so. He said everyone else on the street cleans in front of their houses and that I was an idiot for not following suit. I told him that when I cleaned in front of my house, sometimes idiots would park there, taking advantage of my work. He didn't like that at all. Yes, well played. Well called out, too. Your neighbor wants you to clean a spot for him to park in. If not, he wouldn't care what you did. Not the idiot for failing to do extra work. You don't need to, so your neighbor can benefit. What a beautiful example of malicious compliance. I salute you. Your neighbor would violate the dibs unspoken laws here in Chicago. People shovel out their cars from their spots on the street, and after moving the car, they put old lawn chairs, etc., in the cleared spot to establish their dibs on the spot. Woe unto anyone that takes the spot. The violating car is apt to be vandalized for breaking the law. Ha, good for you.